Jerky, easy to follow recipe. Now it's getting to be about that time of year again where the leaves are falling, and that means it's jerky time. And I've got 10 pounds of Wagyu sirloin tip roast. And sirloin tip roast is a great cut to use for jerky because there's not a ton of fat in there, but being that it's Wagyu, that fat is gonna add an extra little buttery flavor. You know, we're gonna amplify some backyard barbecue fun. I got these sirloin tip roasts from Ozark Valley Beef Company. And of course, whenever you are ordering any type of meat from any purveyor, it's gonna come in frozen. That's a good thing. They put it in a great cooler with some dry ice and some ice packs, so when it arrives to you, it's still nice and frozen. There's a lot of people out there that wanna take away beef because they fart. It's not destroying the planet. Maybe I'm gonna try that carnivore diet. Then I can just say to people, I'm a meat eater. Sharp teeth. The first thing that I had to do with this meat to prep it for jerky was thaw it out a tad. But you don't want to thaw it out completely because if it is a tad frozen, it's a lot easier to slice it up. I'm using my slicer. I never had a slicer until just the past couple years. And to be honest with you, it's probably one of the better investments that I made because I enjoy making bacon and making jerky, even just smoking up an eye around and slicing it nice and thin for some sandwiches. Yeah, it takes a little bit longer to clean up that slicer, but I saved at least 2/3 of the time if I was gonna be using a knife. One thing that I will suggest is make your slices at least 1/4 of an inch. If you go much higher, it's just gonna take longer to cook, and if you go a lot thinner, can tend to dry them out a tad. Once you get all of your meat processed, and this is the reason why I call this recipe easy, is that I just buy these variety packs from PS Season. I'm doing this Wagyu up cracked peppered style. What I typically do to mix up that jerky marinade is I get a big bucket, throw in the water, and then the spices and the cure. Grab a mixer, stir it up real good, and now our marinade is ready. Yeah, I'm using cure in this jerky, but that's because I'm making a ton of it, and it will last a lot longer if you cure it. If you're only gonna make a couple pounds, you don't have to use cure. You're just gonna have to eat it up within about a week or so. Because I have 10 pounds, I'm just putting a little bit of that jerky in it at a time, mixing it around real well, get it covered on both sides, and then I throw it into another bowl. Once I guesstimated that I had about 2.5 pounds, I took it out and threw it in a vacuum sealer bag. After all 4 of those bags were filled up, I took the remainder of that marinade and spread it out evenly in each one of those sacks. Then I went ahead and vacuum sealed them all up nice and tight. Gave them a good old Bertha massage to smooth them out evenly. Then I just threw them into the fridge. You're gonna wanna marinate your jerky for at least 8 to 24 hours. But what I like to do every 8 hours is flip over those bags and give them a little tickle. This jerky is marinated for almost 24 hours. Now it's finally time to get this Wagyu out of the packages and start making some jerky. The great thing about making jerky is that you can use whatever cooker you've got. You can make jerky in your pellet grill, oven, or what I'm using is my Pro Smoker. And I've preheated this at 140 degrees. Now most of you won't be able to cook at that low of a temp. You certainly should be able to preheat your oven at 160 or your pellet grill at 160, 165 degrees. One thing you want to try to do as best as possible is leave about 1/4 inch in between each of these pieces of jerky. God, these are some nice pieces of jerky though. We'll slide the guest of the show in now. Moves so easy. Start getting our little wire racks in. Grab another rack. Now for all of you that are kind of following along with the Pro Max, we're gonna dry it out for 1 hour. Get this last lone survivor on the grate and our last wire rack of jerky. I'll put that one right in the middle. Close it back up, and I'm gonna let this dry for 1 hour. For all of you that are following along and doing this in your oven, if you want a little smoky flavor, PS Seasoning does sell liquid smoke. The first sign that we're looking for to tell if this is done is that we want to reduce this jerky about 50%. So it doesn't matter if you're cooking this on your pellet grill, a Pro Max from Pro Smoker, or In your oven, reduce it about 50%. Time is gonna vary. Sometimes my jerky takes about 8 hours, but I'm not raising that temp very high. But for now, we're gonna set a timer for 1 hour. For all of you that have the Pro Smoker, either the Classic or the Pro Max, because we have so much product in here, it's cooled this pit down. And I also had the door open for a while. I'm gonna put it over on to cook and run it at 140 degrees. This way, both the heating elements are gonna kick into gear, and this is gonna come up to a temp a lot quicker. Now, back to your hour timer. With a Pro Smoker, you actually use sawdust for your smoke. Now I'm gonna use just about a full pan here. Spilled a little, whoopsie. You can get this from Pro Smokers too. We gotta make sure we save all of this though. Now I'll just add in about a cup of water or so. Start mixing it around because we want this to get nice and damp. Add in about another cup and mixy. It does take quite a bit of water to get this all nice and moist. Now after I have it kind of distributed well, I make a little bit of a hole in the center, but I don't stamp it out all the way to the bottom of the pan in the middle, because if you do, you're certainly gonna end up with a little bit of a temp spike. Just something kind of like this. A lot of you master built electric smokers have asked me what my opinion is on the Pro Max. In my opinion, Pro Smokers makes the best electric smoker for the residential user. That's perfect timing on my timer. I'm just finishing right now. Let's get our sawdust pan in and set it right in the middle of that heating element. And we're going to want to open our bottom dampener. I said dampener. We're gonna wanna open our bottom damper to about half to 2/3 open. And the same with our top damper. I'm also gonna turn this up to 150 degrees and we'll run at that temp for 2 hours. For all of you with pellet grills and ovens, you're still running at 160 or 165 degrees. It's gonna start getting smoky in here in a little bit. I'm closing in on that 2-hour timer, but at the 1 hour mark of the smoking process, I took the top 2 racks and swapped them out with the bottom 2. This will help us get a lot more even cooking throughout that chamber. But this last part, we're gonna actually take and flip over all of this jerky. We got a little bit of moisture here, and flipping it over, well, that's only gonna speed up the process. And yeah, I'm already 3 hours into this cook. It's gonna take a while. You know, I could probably leave my pit door closed. Now once I get to the bottom 2 racks and flip them over, these that are a little less done, they're gonna go on the bottom 2. Also good time to grab out our sawdust pan, give that a little shake, get it back in there. We still have plenty of sawdust in there, and once this pit builds back up the temp, it's gonna start smoking again. For all of you that are using a different style of cooker, I suggest that you flip and rotate your product too. Just speeds up the process. I'm gonna set a timer for another hour, and if it's done smoking, then we're gonna crank it up to 160 degrees. No need to leave this pan in here when it's pretty much out of sawdust. I'm certainly developing a little color on some of them. Now we're entering the final drying stage. I am gonna turn the Pro Max up to 160 degrees, and every hour or so, I'll come back and check and see what they're looking like. Now during this time, I will be rotating some of this product along with, as they shrink, getting rid of a few racks. And as some of them start finishing up, we'll start putting them in a mason jar. Thank you very much to Ozark Valley Beef Company for supplying me these sirloin tips. Now for all of you that do not have accessibility to Wagyu, there will be a link in the description below, and I think I'm gonna even be able to save you some money. Jerky has been running for about 8.5 hours. I'm down to 1 lonely rack, but I wanted to show you a piece. This jerky has some fantastic color, and I hope that I can capture it on video. Best way to tell if your jerky is done, well, number 1, look at how thick it is. Remember, I cut these at 1/4 inch. Now this is down to about 1/8 of an inch. The other way to tell that it's starting to get close is you're gonna start seeing all of this oil starting to pool up on top of it. That's just the remainder of the fat starting to really render up. Now this is Wagyu, so there's a little bit more rendering to do. But I don't want to get rid of all the fat, because on Wagyu, that buttery flavor is so dang good. And finally, the last step that I know when it's done is when I start bending it. Is it gonna crack? It doesn't snap back immediately, but it's gonna crack. And you can see, crack-a-doodly. Now before I really consider the jerky done, I do take it out of the pit and pat it kind of dry with some paper towel. Then it goes back in there for 15 to 30 minutes, and once it's starting to look pretty glistening dry, then I just throw it in a mason jar, leave it on the counter for a couple days, and that helps it dry also. And I can't lie, I have tried a couple pieces, and this cracked black pepper from PS Seasoning is fantastic. If you like black pepper like I do, this is a perfect marinade for jerky. Okay, here goes. Got a little piece. I can bite through it. Kind of. And that's another sign of good jerky. You don't want it just to be rubbery like the stuff you get at the C-store. I'm telling you, if you like making jerky, you gotta just try this at least once. You know I don't usually get too excited when I'm eating. That buttery fat in this is stupid good. My next jerky video is gonna be using some venison backstrap. Pretty excited about that too, because we're going from Wagyu down to deer meat. Well, that's all I got. Roll-a-nation. With mesquite jerky, honey barbecue jerky, and even teriyaki.